So what's the best, fastest and most efficient way to crate train your puppy, dog or new rescue dog? Well, in today's video I'm going to explain exactly how. Welcome back to the Canine Show. If you're new around here, my name's Will. I'm a canine behaviourist, and on this channel I make videos just like this one to educate people on the amazing world of our canine best friends. So if you are new here, please consider subscribing. Now, before we dive into how we crate train our dogs, I thought it'd be a good place to start with why should we crate train our dogs, as there's a very common misconception out there that crate training's cruel, which is not the case whatsoever. Crate training is an amazing tool for your dog and is something that your dog should absolutely love, especially as dogs are such deeply embedded denning animals. The problem is that people train using the crate the wrong way. They rush it, they stick their dog in the crate, the dog freaks out and cries, they feel sorry for the dog, then they just refuse to use it ever again, and the dog misses out on an amazing tool that they should absolutely love and is really helpful for you as the owner. Using a crate is fantastic for potty training your dog, because when your dog learns to love its crate and understands that that's its special place and its den, they won't want to wee or poo inside their den, because dogs are actually quite hygienic animals. So it helps them hold it in longer, and when they come out of the crate they'll be ready to go to the toilet, so you can take them straight to the designated area, and toilet training just becomes so much easier. Crate training is also an absolute lifesaver when it comes to dogs going through their teething and chewing phases, which can save you a fortune in terms of damage that dogs are capable of doing. We've all seen online the absolute horror pictures of dogs that have destroyed sofas, door frames, windowsills, everything. It's heartbreaking and can cost a fortune. Now, if you use proper crate training, you can save all of that heartache. And crate training is also an excellent tool for separation anxiety. Now, separation anxiety is one of those things that's thrown around, but it's actually very rare to have a true case of separation anxiety. However, preemptive crate training is a great way to stop separation anxiety from happening in the first place, and crate training is something that I utilize as a canine behaviorist in terms of treating genuine separation anxiety. Now, what a lot of people refer to as separation anxiety is merely just poor house training. The dog hasn't been taught to love its crate. Now, if you follow this step-by-step guide that I'm about to go through, this is exactly how you can teach any new puppy, any new dog that you've rescued, or any dog that's coming into your home for whatever reason, to absolutely love their crate. It is also exactly the procedure I would use for very mild cases of separation anxiety, and it's also part of a rehabilitation program that I would use for severe cases of separation anxiety, along with different desensitization procedures. But this video isn't about fixing separation anxiety, it's about teaching crate training and stopping that from happening in the first place. Now, if you're new here because you've got a new puppy or a new dog and you want more information on how I train puppies to be perfect canine companions, I've got a full perfect puppy guide that takes you from day one all the way through, step by step, every step of the process, to ensure you have a perfect canine companion. So if you are interested in that course, the link is down in the description box below. So let's get into it. How do we crate train a dog? Well, first things first, we need the tools of the trade. Now, obviously you're going to need a crate. There's lots of different crates on the markets, and different crates have different purposes. I would ideally stay away from a soft-sided travel crate until your dog is perfectly crate trained, just because it can cause some quite severe accidents, and I personally lean towards the wire crates as opposed to the plastic ones. Now, you don't want your crate to be too big. Ideally you want your dog to have enough room to be able to go in, stand up, turn around and lie down. Now, if you're anything like me and have a giant breed like a Cane Corso, you might not necessarily want to be buying crates all the time, as they start so small and grow so huge. It would be easy to go through 3 or 4 different sizes of crates. Now, some crates have dividers, which means that you can separate it off while they're small and gradually make the crate bigger and bigger as they grow. That's an excellent choice, but ultimately it's not the end of the world if the crate's a bit bigger rather than a bit smaller, especially if you've got a large dog and you want to give them room to grow into their crate as they get older. Then you're going to want things to make the crate really comfortable inside. Now, if you've got a dog that isn't an excessive chewer, or you're not necessarily overly worried about them potentially destroying a few beds inside, which shouldn't happen if you're actually following this guide step by step and not rushing the procedure, a nice comfortable bed is ideal. I use a bed from Tuffy's that's one of their travel beds. It's absolutely brilliant because it folds in half, and when it's in half it's like double thick, so it's like lying on a cloud. I genuinely would be happy to sleep on one of those beds. But also, as the dog gets older, like in my case my Connie Corso, they unfold and it doubles the size, so as they get older the bed can grow with them. It also makes it super convenient to be able to chuck it in the back of the car or in the boot, or be able to take it with you if you're going out and about to lots of different places and you want to be able to take a comfortable bed with them. If you're using a wire crate like the one I use, and I recommend, get a blanket or a towel, something that's big enough to fit all the way over the top and make it like a little cave. Again, we're trying to recreate a really comfortable denning environment for our dogs. I then also recommend a product called a Snuggle Puppy. Now, usually, traditionally, I don't necessarily buy into gimmicky products, and I didn't at first instance think that this was a gimmicky product. Essentially, it looks just like a dog teddy bear, but bear with me, they do have a genius feature. So underneath you can rip open the belly, and inside it comes with one of these. Now this really is what you're buying. This is a brilliant little invention, and what it does is if you press the button, I'll put it up against the microphone so you might be able to hear it. I hope you can hear that. That imitates a heartbeat. Now what that does is it makes it really good for your dog to feel comfortable, because it mimics them being around litter mates. So especially if you're getting a young puppy, popping one of these inside the crate with them, or at night time during the evening when they're settling down for sleep, to have something like this to cuddle up next to is a brilliant tool. They also sell these. They're a little bit expensive to use every day, but they're these little heat packs. Again, you expose them to air, you stick them inside, and this is over 24 hours old now, and it's still really warm. So it heats the teddy bear up, so the teddy bear gets warm. It's got a little heartbeat, and the dog, you'll find, especially if you use it right from the first night, it helps them settle down because it mimics them being with their litter mates and makes them feel much more secure. Then on top of that, we need rewards, and I break it down into 3 categories. Your basic reward, which can be things like simple as the dog's kibble, or just basic little reward treats or little bits of cut up meat. That's like level 1. Level 2 reward are things like their favourite chew toy, rawhide bones, things like that. So a little bit higher than a normal reward, but not the maximum level. And the maximum level we reserve for their absolute favourite things. So that can be something like a Kong that you stuff with meat pate and then freeze it, or a real bone. And that kind of comes down to each dog has its own favourite thing, and each dog will have a hierarchy of those things. So you kind of need to work that out. What does your dog absolutely love? And we'll discuss how we use that. Then something that like they really enjoy, but it's not their absolute favourite thing, and then just some basic treats. Now all these items that I'm discussing or that I recommend, I have left links for down in the description box below, so it's really easy for you to go and find. Whether you're in America or England, there's links for both of you guys down in the description. So we know why we crate train, we've got all the tools to do it properly. Now let's actually jump into getting the job done. And step 1 is what I call the positive crate association phase. Now this happens from the second you bring your dog home. So you've got the crate, you've turned it into that lovely little den, there's a nice comfortable bed in there, and we're going to leave the door for the crate open at all times. Now depending on where your dog sleeps, for example my puppy sleeps in our bedroom in the crate, but the door remains open, and I don't mind her having access to the rest of the bedroom because we puppy proofed it. Now if you want your dog in an area and you want them to sleep in the crate, but you don't want them to have all access to the entire room, I recommend you put in the crate within then a penned off environment, just to give you a little bit more security. But we're not fully locking them in the crate yet, because we really want to develop an amazing association with the crate, which will help us much further on when we move on to the later steps. So we've got this amazing environment for our dogs, and we need to teach them that it is an amazing environment, and we kind of do that through 3 different steps. And I want you to do this for a few days before we move on to the next step, and at no point during this do you lock them inside of the crate. This is all about getting them to understand that the crate is an amazing environment that they want to go into willingly. Now the first thing is simply feed their meals inside of the crate. Get the bowl, keep the gate open, start at the front of the crate so they can kind of just put their head in and eat their dinner, then slowly put it until it's all the way at the back of the crate. Some dogs might even do that on meal 1 or 2 and be happy to go in. Some it might take a bit longer, so be flexible and use your common sense, but don't ever force them to go in. Try not to push them to go in. If you need to kind of just help lift their back legs in, do so, but never force them or make it a negative experience, but get them to the point where you can put the bowl all the way at the back of the crate and they're happily going running in so that they can get their dinner. Now, simply by doing that, you're a huge part of the way there to crate training. The second thing we can do is called just the crate game. So this is where we use our level 1 reward. So a bit of kibble, a little bit of meat, and all we do is we sit down next to the crate and we start by just getting the dog just to lure it towards the crate, put a little bit of the food just inside the crate, let them get it and come back out. And again, like the dog food, we're just going to slowly throw that bit in a bit deeper and a bit deeper until you've got to a point where you're turning it into a really fun game where you throw the treat all the way to the back of the crate and the dog will happily go running in to get the treat. And the third and final part of our exercise in terms of positive crate association is utilizing our level 2 rewards. And like I say, this could be a rawhide or their favorite chew or things like a dentist stick, something that they really enjoy but isn't the absolute highest value reward, and that's something that they can keep at all times but only inside the crate. So for example, we're using a rawhide bone, we put that inside the crate and the dog can go in and chew it. Now if they bring it outside of the crate, you remove it from them and you put it back inside the crate, just to get them used to the idea that if you want to chew this thing, please feel free, but you do that inside the crate. That's where you do this really fun activity. You do these few things over a few days and the dog will very, very quickly really start to associate the crate with an amazing fun place to be. Then when we get to this stage, we move on to the next level of training, and this is where I really utilize my crate training system, and this is where the magic happens in terms of getting them to stay in the crate with the door locked and absolutely love it. Now once we've got them to the point where they're going in and out of the crate happily, they'll go in there for a cuddle with their snuggle puppy, they might be going in for having their naps in there if you don't let them up on the sofa or on the bed. Let them get used to the idea of going into the crate if they want to sleep, on top of the idea of going into the crate for the fun game, for their favorite treat or for their meals. And this is where we move on to the system, and this is where we use that highest value reward. Now whatever you've designated and you've decided that your dog loves, for me, my dog's favorite thing is a real bone. That just sends her absolutely wild. So that is a tool that I'm going to really only ever use for this system. And what we do is that toy comes out. Very simple. So I use a small ham knuckle bone. I get her to sniff it, get her excited. I put it into the back of the crate like I do with the all the other games that we've done. She'll happily go in, but as she goes in, and because she's got used to that idea of having a rawhide bone or that level 2 treat and chewing it in there, what we do at this stage is very calmly, this is all done calmly. We never get the dog excited during this, by the way. We want nice calm levels. Even when we're feeding them, everything's calm. So we want them to not only enjoy it, but it's not enjoyment on an excitable high energy level, it's enjoyment in a nice relaxed calm level, because it's a positive calming experience where they can take themselves away and have some alone time in peace. So we've got our high value reward, whether it's a bone or a stuffed Kong, we put it towards the back. As they go in, we very calmly shut the crate door, we lock it, and we go out of the room and shut the door. Now what we want to mimic is you being out of the house completely, and what we're doing is we're building up to a point where you can put them in the crate and go off to work or go shopping, and the dog is really happily going to enjoy being in the crate. Most dogs will not enjoy this, and this is where most people get it wrong. There is kind of the old-fashioned method of chucking them in and just letting them cry it out, and yes, that does work, and I've used that in the past, and there's certain situations like I've had to do with my puppy where there was no way, I had to go and do some chores, and obviously I'm not going to let my puppy have the run of the house, so I put them in the crate and shut her in there. But because of this positive association, she did cry a little bit, but she soon calmed down. But I'm still working on this system, and we go back to this system. And ideally, you don't ever want to leave them in there to cry it out if you've got the opportunity of using this system as I'm about to discuss. So we've put the high value reward in, we've shut the door, we go out the room, we close the door, and then we wait. Now we wait to start with, potentially for just 1 second. And I know this sounds trivial, but what we do is we give them 1 second, 5 seconds, 10 seconds, whatever it is that's comfortable to start with. And then we go back into the room, we open the crate door, and we remove the high value reward and put it away, and it is gone. We don't make a big deal of it. Then we take the dog out for a toilet break. bring it back in, and that reward's gone. And this is where the system comes in. And what we're going to do is you're going to have a little book, and you can keep this on top of the crate so that it's always there and ready to go. And I'm going to show you my little book that I've got now, and you're going to have times down the left and then 3 tick boxes against each time on the right hand side. Now you can choose your own timing increments, but I recommend you utilizing the same ones that I am. Now if you've got a case of separation anxiety, you might need to start off with just 1 second and 3 seconds and 5 seconds, or like me, you can go to more 10 seconds, 15 seconds, 30 seconds. And what you're going to do is you're going to start on the first time increment, and if you go out of the room, you wait for that time in silence, and the dog doesn't cry when you come back in, you're going to tick that box. Now ideally we're going to be redoing this maybe 2 or 3 times a day so that they can really start to learn. And this whole procedure, if you're ticking it off each time you go and taking it in nice baby steps, it might take a month or 2, but each time you're going to be going longer and longer. So for example, you're on the 15 seconds, you come out the room, you've waited 15 seconds, there was no crying, you go back in, you remove the bone, and you go back to leaving the crate open, and you tick that box. You do it again, and if there's no crying, tick the box. You do it again, no crying, tick the box. Always leave like a couple of hours in between doing it, by the way, because what we want to do is really associate the dog, to associate their little minds with, it is amazing when my owner goes out, because when they go out and shut me in this crate, I get the best thing in the world, and actually them coming home sucks a little bit because I lose it. So I actually want to be in here for as long as possible, and for them to go for as long as possible, so that I get even more time with my special thing. But you don't want to rush this process. Even if you've got a dog like mine that's finding these early increments really easy, it would be easy to go, oh, well, she's done 15 seconds, I'll leave it for 30. Oh, she's done 30 and hasn't cried, I'll leave it for a minute. I'll leave it for 2 minutes, 5 minutes, but you don't want to rush, because not only are we building up the association of not crying when they're in the crate, we want to build that association that when you come home, the special thing is removed, and you want them to be a little bit disappointed with that, because that is what really builds up the amazing crate training skill set that we're absolutely looking for. So if things are going really well, be patient and just work through each time increment a little bit at a time, and get the dog used to being on their own for little bits of longer time. And you keep doing this. Like I say, it might seem trivial to start off with 5 seconds, but before you realize it, within a few days you'll be up to a couple of minutes, and you'll be sat in silence listening out for the crying for 2 minutes, and you'll go, fair play, that dog's been in there for 2 minutes, happy days. And when you come back in, they're a bit disappointed that you're removing the special treat. And again, weeks will go by before you realize that you're up to 5 minutes, 10 minutes, half an hour, 2 hours, and within a couple of months you'll be at the point where you'll comfortably be able to leave your dog for 4 hours plus. And that is the dream way of crate training our dogs, to not only make it as smooth sailing for us as possible, but for them to really deeply ingrain a love for their crate, so that when you leave the home, they're absolutely ecstatic to be in their little den with their special thing. Now, a few problem solving things that you need to be aware of is if you push it too far, and say you move up to the 30-second mark, and at 25 seconds your dog starts crying, now you need to go into the phase of waiting for them to stop crying before you let them out. That is the worst mistake you can make with this system. Now ideally you're doing such small increments and building up the time gradually, and you're not rushing it, and you're waiting until they've had 3 successful attempts at each time increment before moving on to the next one, that the dog will never actually cry in the first place and only ever love being in their crate. But if you do rush it, or your dog's got a mild case of separation anxiety, you need to make sure that everything's nice and calm, wait for them to stop crying, and then open the crate door, remove the bone, let them out for the toilet, and start again. Go back to the start of that time increment and wait, and keep going, keep practicing until they get that 3 positive experiences with no crying, then move on to the next time increment. But like I say, if you do it properly, you give them positive association in the first place, start at a small increments of time, even just a few seconds, and then slowly increase those increments of time every time they have 3 successful attempts at it. Like I say, before you realize it, you'll have a perfectly crate trained dog, which is an absolute pleasure to be with. Now, if you do want to see a little bit more about the behind the scenes of how I crate train my dogs and how I interact with my dogs, socialize them, obedience work, if you didn't know, I have got a vlogging channel called Will and Mabel. Again, the link is in the description box for that, so you can go over, check that channel out, subscribe to it, and watch those videos, and you'll see those kind of things more in first hand. But like I said at the start of the video. If you really want the full breakdown, step-by-step guide for everything from all areas of obedience, socialization and manners, so you've got a perfect canine companion, that's where my Perfect Puppy course comes in. And again, that is also in the description box below. So I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did and got some use out of it, please give it a thumbs up. Subscribe if you're new here. I really appreciate you watching, and I'll see you on the next episode of The Canine Show.